Yeah, man, we live right now. You know, you can go over to YouTube. It's about to be a damn good lecture. We're gonna have questions, get into the history, some figures of critical race theory and all that. You know, shout out to all the other countries, you know what I'm saying? I see Canada is in the building. Shout out to Canada. Yeah, y'all go over to YouTube right now, man. And when you get into YouTube, going on and comment, man, where you coming in from, man. Let me know what city you coming in from. You know, shout out to Liz, Shanika, and Daisha. You know, they already here. It's going down, man. Shout out to Damo and Young Huey in the background. You know, the political plug. We got Montreal, Canada. Okay, Bedford, Texas. Yeah, man. But hey, y'all come over to YouTube, man. The Consciously on YouTube. But yeah, man, we're about to be having us a nice little robust conversation about critical race theory, getting into some history, getting into some figures, getting into some actual different terms. I'm gonna give y'all my personal relationship to critical race theory and how I was introduced to it. You know what I'm saying? I'm also gonna have a little Q&A. The Q&A, I guess, as long as my kids allow for me to be in the Q&A, that's what we'll do with that. You know, I guess giving y'all a little more background what's going on right now. Originally, when I set this date for this lecture, my kids was going to be at the babysitter, and recently some things came up, so my kids is here. So I'm doing a little bit of, you know, multitasking, getting into critical race theory, but also still having to be a dad. You know what I'm saying? So my kids might come on to the camera, because sometimes when I'm on the microphone and on the camera, that's what my kids do. Shout out to Houston, Texas, though. Tulsa, Oklahoma. We got Brooklyn in the building. Jacksonville, San Diego. You know, I can't know I say that. Aco-Keek, Maryland. Aco-Keek. How we say that right there? Aco-Keek. Aco-Keek. Yeah, you know what I mean? We're gonna shout out to the ATL, man. Chef Ricky Rick. Yeah, man. So y'all tell a friend to tell a friend that we're gonna be getting into critical race theory, man. I'm about to get ready to put it back on the screen. I thought I'm gonna give a few more minutes to people to, I'm saying, this to show up, man. We got Dominican Republic in this thing, man. Martinsville, Virginia. Hey, Zane, stop, son. Oh, look like I gotta go in here and intervene real fast while people come in, man. Hold on, I would play some music, but y'all know, you know what I'm saying. YouTube be playing with the music when you play the music and things. So you know we ain't gonna play that, man. We got Nova Scotia in the building, man. Kansas City. Shout out to Kansas City, man. This is the Lost in the South lecture series. If it's your first time tuning into a lecture series, I actually have another lecture series. It's just about racism, white supremacy, white privilege. I also have another Lost in the South lecture series. It's about sex, gender, LGBTQ, gender identity, things like that, man. If you like this lecture, you should go check out those other two lectures as well, man. And I also gonna have some part two critical theory lecture coming your way very soon. I'm about to go ahead and check on my kids one last time before I get the rocking and rolling and going. Just give me like 1 minute. Yeah, man. We in this thing now. About to get it started. About to get it going. Hawaii / San Diego. We got Barstow, California. About to just go back to sharing this screen, man. So, how I like to start this off by saying one of the first people that I think that was able to inspire me, that was able to empower me of being able, I feel like, and really having a burning desire to want to know more about the world and more about myself, was a guy by the name of Dr. Huey P. Newton. You feel me? Dr. Huey P. Newton was one of the co-founders of the Black Panther Party. And he had this quote about power that I feel like always just sticks with me and always just really impacts how I give analysis, right? He said that power is the ability to define the phenomenon and make it act in a desired manner. I'll repeat that again. He said that power is the ability to define the phenomenon and make it act in a desired manner. Today, the phenomenon that we're going to be defining very briefly, is critical race theory. There are a lot of people that's lost in the sauce of their feelings and making a whole bunch of knee-jerk reactions and analysis about what critical race theory is and what it is not. Throughout this lecture, I'm going to be definitely trying to check out the comment section as much as possible to be able to contextualize a lot of what I'm saying. I know that I speak a little bit of fast for y'all that don't know. I'm also a professor at the University of Oklahoma, where I'm a debate coach and, teaching classes about diversity and inclusion as well as argumentation. You feel me? So right now I'm gonna try to get into my teaching bag just a little bit. Just a little bit. Shout out to everybody tuned in though. Definitely, I've been excited to really, I feel like, be able to give some clarity to what's going down with critical race theory. But without further ado, hey, Damo, you got me in the background because I can no longer see it a little bit, but you know what's going down though, man. Shout out to my big bro, the political plug, you feel me, always, hold me down in more ways than some, you feel me, especially always behind the scenes, so a lot of times when y'all see things that I'm putting up, you feel me, Damo has a big hand in that, but today we're going to be defining the phenomenon of critical race theory. As a teacher, as a professor, I believe having a nice, robust roadmap of clarity of what we're going to be going, it's always good for the teacher to be able to be going down. You know what I'm saying? I have a master's degree in adult and higher education, a difference I learned in pedagogy and andragogy. You feel me? There's a difference between teaching adults and teaching, you feel me, kids. In this instance, though, I feel like there's going to be kids and adults that's both present. So I'm going to try to, keep it smooth and cool, right? But we're going to be defining key terms around CRT. When I say CRT, that's just an abbreviated, acronym, critical race theory. We're going to be discussing the purpose of CRT. We're going to be exploring some important figures in CRT. And then we're going to be understanding, why they really mad at critical race theory. You know what I'm saying? And I think that throughout this lecture, you're going to be able to make your own analysis and your own I feel like reasons of why you think that people don't want it to be taught in schools. You know what I'm saying? And shout out to the haters that's going to be here, watching this lecture. As y'all know, I'm a debate coach. I'm always with their work. So if you think that, you feel me, that I said something that you think is debatable, man, GeorgeLeeSpeaks.com is where you send your debate inquiries in. And me and the team, you feel me, we'll make an assessment to see what, what you're talking about, if it's really worth our time, man. But those are the learning objectives today. And just to start off, though, a lot of people came into understanding about critical race theory in September 2020. You know what I'm saying? September 2020, when President Trump issued an executive order excluding from federal contracts any diversity and inclusion training that was interpreted as containing divisive concepts, race or sex stereotyping, race or sex scapegoating. Among the content considered divisive is critical race theory. But here's the thing, though, about when people get lost in the sauce and their feelings, and the reason why I say research over me search, because let's be clear, critical race theory is not a diversity and inclusion training, but it is a practice of interrogating the role of race and racism in society that emerged in the legal academy and spread to other fields of scholarships. You feel me? I was just came out for TikTok. I had somebody in there because you always get the people that come in the comment section that want to act like that they don't know. That I feel like it's always people that assume you don't know what you're talking about, right? And there was somebody in the comment section that was like, well, actually, CRT is only about the law. It's like, for people that think that, let's be clear, though critical race theory started in legal, the legal academy, it has spilled over and spread to many other fields. You know what I mean? I know a lot of y'all gonna ask questions about when should we teach critical race theories in school, and at what age should kids know about critical race theory. And this is going on to be clear on that right now too. You feel me? I know y'all gonna have y'all questions as well, but the age that young kids of color can experience and understand racism, that's the same age that white kids can learn about racism as well. You know what I'm saying? I know that at this point, there's been a lot of things that's been conflated about racial education and critical race theory. And I hope that, we're going to clear that up. But why they really mad at CRT? CRT challenges white privilege and exposes deficit-informed research that ignores and often omits the scholarship of people of color. I know that most of the times when we talk about race and racism, there are components of neutrality and objectivity that find its way into the conversation. CRT recognizes that racism is not a bygone relic of the past. Instead, it acknowledges that the legacy of slavery, segregation, and the imposition of second-class citizenship on Black Americans and other people of color continue to permeate the social fabric of this nation. Critical race theory, you know what I'm saying? Hey, Donald, you can go take it, you know what I'm saying? You can go put it on me right here because I think I want to make sure, you know what I'm saying? I think give some proximity and give us ways for people to be able to identify with critical race theory, right? Critical race theory, for me, is able to expose a lot of the ways in which, when we talk about racism in the mainstream, that white conservatives uniquely love to deploy what I've learned to be called the trick of time, right? In the way that I want to kind of contextualize what I think what I want y'all to understand the trick of time as being is that a few weekends ago, I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. For y'all that don't know, it's the 100th year anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. You feel me? There was about, I think, $30 million that these people raised to build a building in remembrance of the Greenwood District or whatever. But the people that live in Greenwood District where Tulsa Race Massacre happened, and the people that survive in there, you feel me? They don't want it to be, you know what I'm saying? They don't want it to happen, right? What I found, how I understand the trick of time is one of the survivors got the opportunity to go to the Capitol Hill. And I say got the opportunity. It's like, unfortunately, had to go to the Capitol Hill to be able to speak towards her position and being a survivor of state-sanctioned violence. You feel me? Because one of the uniqueness of the Tulsa Race Massacre is wasn't just that it was the government allowed for it to happen. In many instances, the government was involved and actually gave guns and resources for it to happen, right? She talked about how after Tulsa Race Massacre, when they were asking for reparations, they said that it was too early. They said it was too early. You know what I'm saying? And now that they're asking reparations, she say it's too late. When we talk about critical race theory, being able to recognize that racism is not a bygone relic of the past, and being able to acknowledge the legacy of slavery and segregation, one of the reasons of why critical race theory is frowned upon in the mainstream is because it is able to expose the way in which white conservatives, and uniquely sometimes, a lot of times, I'm saying also white liberals are able to deploy that trick of time that says that we should get past slavery, but we're going to go back to 1776 to go back in the past to, you know what I'm saying, to celebrate the legal documentation of the Declaration of Independence. You see what I'm saying? That's one of the reasons why I think they're mad about critical race theory and about one of the unique powers of critical race theory. Zane. But just some brief history on critical race theory, you know, because I believe that in order for you to know where something is going, in order for you to understand something, you got to know where it came from, right? Critical race theory began in the legal academy in the 1970s, and it grew in the 1980s and the 90s, and it persists as a field of inquiry in the legal field and other areas of scholarship. I came to know critical race theory through academia and higher education and learned about structures in the law and institutions and oppression and things like that. As Mari Masudi described, CRT as the work of progressive legal scholars seeking to address the role of racism in the law and the work to eliminate it and other configurations of subordination. I know that Fox News would have it that critical race theory is trying to burn the world down the way that it is. Now, don't get me wrong. There is some literature bases out there that does talk about things like burn it down. However, critical race theory is not one of those. I think throughout this, I hope that we understand that there are a lot of different modes of black literature throughout the academy, whether we're talking about law, medicine, health, mathematics. There are a lot of different methods, practices, procedures, perspectives when we talk about black people uniquely that operate in these fields. And I think it'll be worthwhile y'all doing what I say, research over me search, and really going and learn the multiplicity of blackness. You know what I'm saying? People love to say that blackness is not a monolith. I would encourage you to understand how blackness is not a monolith in more ways than some. One of those ways definitely through literature. The originators, the OGs of critical race theory include Derek Bell, Kimberly Crenshaw, Cheryl Harris, Richard Delgado, Patricia Williams. And for my note takers right now, for the people that's maybe this is your first time really being introduced to critical race theory, this is where you want to take your notes. You know what I'm saying? These are some of the scholars that are producing work when it comes to thinking about critical race theory insofar of the law, of the economy, of politics, of things like that. We know CRT also trends the white-black binary. It recognizes that racism has impacted the experiences of various people of color, including Latinx, Native Americans, and Asian Americans. I think one of the reasons I believe that CRT is demonized is because of how it's able to galvanize unity amongst a lot of people of color. You feel me? Latinx, Native American, Asian American, you know what I'm saying? A lot of different communities are able to see how white supremacy is codified within the law, you know? And me being able to give y'all that Huey P. Newton quote, one of the reasons why I like that quote is because it's like, hey, we recognize that power lies in language. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times power lies in language. And the way that I believe that language is powerful, you feel me, is that when I used to be young, I had a speech impediment. Not only did I have a speech impediment, I came from an education that didn't give me the vocabulary to be able to express myself, to say what I want to mean and mean what I want to say. You see what I'm saying? Critical race theory gives us the ability to have language for us to be able to not only define the phenomenon, but be able to contextualize what's happening to us. I think there are a lot of normalized ways of disarming oppressed peoples when we use language. You see what I'm saying? Like right now, I would argue that one of the ways that critical race theory is seen as being a bad thing amongst conservatives is because they've been able to say for decades, hey, black people, hey, people of color, your ass bet not be complaining if you do not understand the policymaking process or if you're not getting involved in the policymaking process. Critical race theory gives us an understanding of the policymaking process in a way to understand how race and racism are embedded into the law in ways that make it where people are able to deploy color blindness, to make it where they're able to disarm black people when we want to talk about the law. For instance, y'all know me through social media, right? One of the ways in which I've been able to give lessons on social media was one time talking about the Constitution. What I had a lot of conservative, contradictory, and some moderate liberals come to me on is talking about how the notion or concept of race is not in the Constitution. And when they did it where they went and sought my intelligence to make it as if I don't know that shit, right? Critical race theory gives me the language, the understanding, and the perspective to be able to talk to why that is a reality. Speaking truth to power is something that I believe that power does not want. That's the reason why I love that power quote. Power is the ability to define the phenomenon and make it act in a desired manner. That's the reason why I like that quote, because it teaches me how power operates. And as a cisgender black man from Bryan, College Station, Texas, born on west side of Bryan to be specific, I understood at a very young age how language, being able to label something or someone, is how we able to relate to things and how we are able to distribute value to things based off of how we label them and based off of how we're able to position them with naming. Back to this idea of critical race theory, right? As a result, critical race theory has branched into a lot of different branches that also give different communities the ability to speak truth to power and being able to, I feel like, diversify their language. We got Lat Crit, Triple Crit, Asian CRT. All these things emerge out of critical race theory. We have an abundance of different things like Afro-pessimism, Afro-futurism, Black feminism. When you get into literature, you get to see that a lot of these literatures, they're what we call being multidisciplinary. And when things are multidisciplinary, that means they borrow from multiple disciplines. You feel me? And critical race theory is just one of many disciplines. Which brings me into the first key figure that I want to highlight. The OG Kimberly Crenshaw. A lot of you may know her as the person that coined the term intersectionality, which is defined that by the intersecting systems of power and oppression and how when you get different people that are maybe take black trans women for existence, you know what I'm saying? We know that black trans women are black, trans, and woman. Kimberly Crenshaw in her analysis of intersectionality gives us a way to understand how being black, being trans, and being woman kind of signified or kind of impacts to these what she calls multiple subjugation, you know what I'm saying, positions, right? Kimberly Crenshaw was a pioneering scholar and writer of civil rights, critical race theory, black feminist legal theory, racism, and the law. In addition to her position in Columbia Law School, she's a distinguished professor of law at the University of California, Los Angeles, also known as UCLA. And here's what Crenshaw said, right? Not only did Crenshaw coin the term CRT, she notes that CRT is not a noun, but it's a verb, you know? Last year, I spent a little time being an English teacher. For y'all that don't know, I know sometimes as adults, you feel me? I feel like a lot of other teenagers might still remember what this is, but as adults, just for us that don't remember, a noun is the person, place, a thing, and a verb is an action. So when she says that CRT is not a noun, you know what I'm saying? She's saying how it cannot be confined to a static or narrow definition, but it can be considered to be evolving in a malleable practice. It critiques how the social construction of race and institutionalized racism perpetuates a racial caste system that relegates people of color to the bottom tiers. CRT also recognizes that race intersects with other identities, including sexuality, gender, and identity, and other things. I'm about to show y'all real quick, you know what I'm saying, one of these, I feel like one of the more instrumental pieces of scholarship throughout critical race theory. I think that was able to have a big impact on how we understand race, class, gender, ability, sexuality, especially in our understandings of the law. I'm going to read a part of it. This comes from Kimberly Crenshaw's, it's in our work site right now. But she says that we can look at debates over racial subordination throughout history and see that in each instance, there's a possibility of challenging each of the construction of identity or the system of subordination based on that identity. She says, consider, for example, the segregation system in Plessy versus Ferguson. At the issue of multiple dimensions of domination, including categorization, the sign of race, the subordination of those and those so labeled. You know, there were at least two targets for Plessy to challenge. And for y'all that don't know, you know, Plessy versus Ferguson is one of the more, I feel like, I don't say celebrated, one of the more key court cases and the racial progression, you feel me? And how a lot of the times when we teach in classrooms about race, how Plessy versus Ferguson comes up about being the first time the separate but equal was challenged, but it was failed, right? We know that there were two targets that Plessy had to challenge. The construction of identity is what is black? That was the question that Plessy versus Ferguson was asking. And this is one thing I like about language too. This is one thing that me and Donald was talking about, right? Though critical race theory is seen to be starting in the 1970s, and the Plessy versus Ferguson happened well before that, I would argue that Plessy was already doing the work of a critical race theory when he was being critical about what is black in the system of subordination based on that identity. Can blacks and whites sit together on a train? Plessy actually made both of those arguments, one against the coherence of race as a category and the other against subordination of those to be deemed black. In his attack on the former, Plessy argued that the segregation statute application given to him in his mixed race status was inappropriate. Think about how I'm gonna speak for y'all, right? I know when I was taught about Plessy versus Ferguson, the complexity of race was literally glossed over, and I didn't even know that Plessy was a light-skinned man that was light, bright, damn near white that can pass. I didn't know that. You see what I'm saying? And I think that when we talk about critical race theory, and I know y'all gonna ask me, when and should critical race theory be taught in schools? Well, if you think that kids are able to be taught about the legal subjugation of slavery or be taught about civil rights, it's time to also learn about critical race theory, right? In this attack, the former Plessy argued, I'm reading this again. In this attack, former Plessy argued that the segregation statute's application to him, given his mixed status race, was inappropriate. The court refused to see this in an attack on coherence of race system and instead responded in a way that simply reproduced the white-black dichotomy that Plessy was challenging. As we know, Plessy challenged the segregation system was not successful either. In evaluating various resistance strategies today, it is useful to ask which play. This is Kimberly Crishaw's work right here. This is what she's asking, right? This is what she's asking in 1992 at one of the critical race theory conferences. In the challenge against the coherence of racial categorization systems of the challenge for the challenge against the coherence of racial categorization system, the challenge to the practice of racial segregation. The same question can be posed in the Brown versus Board of Education, which the two possible arguments was politically more empowering. The segregation was unconstitutional because the racial categorization system, which is based on an incoherent, and that segregation is unconstitutional because it is injurious to Black children and oppressive to the communal countries. I know that was a little choppy, but it's pretty much asking like, what should we prioritize in terms of challenging legal discrimination? Should it be one that challenges how we understand the coherency or the incoherency of racial categorizations about the one drop rule and this person is multiracial or this person is, you know what I'm saying, can pass as this or whatever? Or do we challenge just the mere notion of it don't even matter how we come to these racial categorizations, but what do we do about when we deem a person as Black and then we justify segregation against them? You see what I'm saying? I think that for a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old that's coming into understanding about race and racism, I think these are very important questions to ask. And I think these questions can spur education. You know? We know that Clarence Thomas, the reason why I wanted to bring this up right here too, is, you know what I'm saying? You know, along the lines, I'm gonna read this part right here, and then I'm gonna give y'all the reason why I'm smiling about this right here. Along the lines, consider Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill controversy. During the Senate hearings for the confirmation of Clarence Thomas, you know what I'm saying, which should be noted, one of the most conservative judges right now in the court, who's also a Black man, Clarence Thomas, had this little incident with Anita Hill. And I didn't call it a little incident. He basically violated her sexually, right? Clarence Thomas is one of those white supremacist sympathizers, you know, one of those anti-Black apologists that love to talk about how race and racism ain't got nothing to do with X, Y, and Z and how he had to work hard, not this, that, and the other. He almost frowns upon racial victimization, right? Critical race theory gave me the ability to understand the grotesque level of what Clarence Thomas did through the lens of intersectionality, and Clarence Thomas evoking racial victimization of him being a Black man and saying he was being lynched in relationship to him being called out for putting his pubic hairs on Anita Hill's soda can cup. If you don't know about the story of Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas and you didn't really catch about it, you feel me, when they was talking about Brett Kavanaugh and talking about Supreme Court, Me Too, you should go do a little research over me search and really get and dive into the legal implication of what happened to Miss Anita Hill. You feel me? Miss Anita Hill was Dr. Anita Hill was also a professor at the University of Oklahoma. You know what I'm saying? But just want to give y'all some of the work that where I'm not really showing y'all these vague discussion about critical race theory. I want to give you something tangible to show you really what they're doing, right? We see that critical race theory critiques how the social construction of race and institutionalized racism perpetuates the racial caste system and relegates all people of color to the bottom. How I understand it through anti-Blackness and through, you know what I'm saying, my understandings of Afro-pessimism is like anti-Blackness and white supremacy is global. I would argue there are 7 continents in the world. All those continents are constructed white over Black, light over dark, even the continent of Africa. And for y'all that don't know, Africa is a continent, not a country. CRT also recognizes that we have this intersectionality in understanding how the law sees different individuals. See, a lot of people don't understand that legally in America, Black women were seen as nymphos that you could legally rape because they were seen as sexually always wanted, you know, and that was codified within the law, right? Critical race theory gives me the understanding to be able to speak towards how, though the 13th Amendment is championed as being the piece of paper the piece of legislation that was able to free the slaves, we don't get into how the 13th Amendment says the United States shall prohibit slavery except for punishment, conviction of crime. Except for punishment, conviction of crime. Now, do y'all think it's ironic that the descendants of slaves are most likely to find themselves convicted as a punishment of crime? I don't think so. But it's giving more context, right? CRT is about the law. And critical race theory didn't come from this nothing. Come in, baby, tell me. Hey, Zane, don't be being mean.
But you're not showing your iPad.
Share the iPad.
No, I want to do your iPad.
Hey, go get it. Go get mine out of my room. Yeah. But this so we know, man, CRT, it didn't come from the sky. It didn't come from the ground. It came from something, from somewhere. CRT grew from critical legal studies, also known as CLS. And for y'all that don't know, critical legal studies argue that the law was not objective. Here. Critical legal studies argue that the law was not objective or apolitical. This is obviously one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like critical race theory, because a lot of people want to see the law as something that is objective, neutral, and something that is kind of distanced far away enough from politics that the politics doesn't have an influence on it. Critical legal studies is a significant departure from all the earlier concepts of the law, because again, all the other scholarships of the law, John Locke and you know what I'm saying, all of the European scholars love to talk about and think about the law as being objective, neutral, principled, disassociated from social political considerations. However, this is where we come in, my personal, you know what I'm saying, how I come to know critical race theory. You know, Derek Bell. Derek Bell is a distinguished legal scholar and prolific writer and a tireless champion for equality. He died in October 5th. I think I don't know why I put the year in here, but I'm gonna get that definitely. I feel like that's a bad look. He helped to develop critical race theory though as a body of legal scholarship, and he explored how racism was embedded in the laws and the legal institutions. One of the ways I was introduced to critical race theory was as an undergraduate debater at the University of Oklahoma as a policy debater. I was introduced to critical race theory and Derek Bell through his work of Space Traders. You know, in Space Traders, Derek Bell in 1992, he's a critical theorist and legal scholar who wrote Space Traders, a story which he posed the question. And don't get me wrong, y'all, it's gonna be a little weird because it's science fiction. You feel me? He doesn't only write science fiction, but Space Traders was a science fiction work where he posed the question that aliens came down to Earth and offered to solve all its problems involving, including environmental destruction, economic collapse, nuclear waste, all that in exchange for all the United States black people if the United States would say yes. In short, what Derek Bell was doing was showing how the United States always says yes in different ways in terms of black interests. You know what I'm saying? And here's what Derek Bell, you know what I'm saying, said. Some of the arguments that I used to make with the Space Traders with Space Traders was about the permanence of racism and the interest convergence theory. You feel what I'm saying? The permanence of racism is about the black vulnerability and black violence. And I used to argue that we should recognize it through the failure of progress in which racism is needed for white interests. And I started talking about the white interest convergence theory. And lamest, hey, y'all, stop fighting. Zane, share the iPad. Friendly reminder, man. Take your birth control, wrap it up, all that things right there. You know what I'm saying? Wait to have kids. But Derek Bell says he published Space Traders as an allegorical drama to illustrate what he views as a constant risk of the status of black people in society that is now throughout the nation's history has been willing to sacrifice black rights, black interests, and even black lives to enhance the status and further the profits and settle differences amongst whites. In the story, aliens from outer space visit this country on New Year's Day in year 2000. They promise wealth in the form of gold, environmental cleansing material, and substitute of fossil fuels. If accepted, their gold and space age technology will guarantee another century of prosperity for the nation. In return for these for these wares, space traders want to take back to their home star all black people. Given 2 weeks to decide, America in a variety of settings debate to offer a trade. Me and Political Plug used to have this little, you know what I'm saying, rendition where we went back and forth, you feel me, and we kind of just through poetry was able to kind of illustrate the different arguments that the white constituents made and the black constituents made about whether black people should go to space or not to be able to save, you know what I'm saying, the resources and be able to save environmental race in America. My understanding, which, you know what I'm saying, a 19-year-old, when I was able to come about a space traders, I was able to get the understanding that science fiction is used to expose a lot of times a lot of the woes of the world in ways that make us understand, you feel me, with that like make us understand in ways in which we don't, I feel like, see when it's in our face. So sometimes we're able to do it through allegory and through fiction. Space traders was able to show to me the interest convergence theory and saying that white people don't do anything for black people unless it first and foremost for its white interests. See what I'm saying? So a lot of us can recognize that critical race theory and the banning of critical race theory poses a damn good contradiction when we think about the Emancipation Proclamation being championed during slavery in school, and also think about Juneteenth becoming a national holiday, right? On one instance, the Emancipation Proclamation is championed as being the piece of legislation that freed the slaves. You feel me? And making it where America is so good and all that good. The name of this book is Space Traders, for y'all just asking. Space Traders, that's the name of the book, right? Oh, shit. In thinking about the, I forgot what I was saying because my kids is yelling in the background. in thinking about Derek Bell's work about the space traders, what I was able to get was how, I don't know, I was about the Emancipation Proclamation. When we talk about the Emancipation Proclamation and how through the legal system, America is able to show how great it is and how we're able to kind of ring down all these great pieces of paper that's able to bring precedent, we start seeing that Juneteenth poses a contradiction to this narrative that we have. You know, the Emancipation Proclamation being a thing through the legal system, if it's all neutral and objective, that means that we should have never gotten to Juneteenth. You know what I'm saying? And me, when I put my educator hat on, it's like to think, what if the kid asks a teacher, why do we celebrate Juneteenth and we have the piece of and we have the Emancipation Proclamation? In many different states throughout America, how that teacher answers that question might land them into some trouble, because we understand how critical race theory has been banned in so many different states. Why is it having banned in those different states? Because a lot of people like to think that critical race theory teaches that white people are bad and that they're colonizers, and teaches people to be racist. So far, I'm curious in the comment section. Do y'all know what I'm saying? Like, what do y'all think? Honestly, I'm actually curious. I ain't even gonna try to inscribe or try to enforce your response. I'm just curious now. You know what I'm saying? In the comment section, like, so far, you feel me? What do y'all think about critical race theory? And so far, it teaches kids to be racist towards white people. You know? For Derek Bell, though, we know that for Derek Bell and others, teaching in the era of critical legal studies was being developed, they felt like it held promise in the field, and that its insights were, but that its insights were insufficient. It was clear that critical legal studies lacked an understanding of the role of race and racism as a substantial motivating factor in American society and its legal system. In response, critical race theory was born, right? We've seen that Bell and other scholars is able to acknowledge all the shortcomings of the leftist understanding and leftist discourse when it comes to race intervention. Here's right now, also why I feel like I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of consciousness in. There's really an inherent beef that a lot of white conservatives was already going to have with critical race theory, because they already didn't like critical legal studies. A lot of times when we think about conservatism, people should ask the question, what are they conserving? You feel me? They conserving this romanticized, colorblind, colonial past that's able to necessitate and really create all this racial violence and colonial violence, but they ain't got to recognize that shit because, hey, the Constitution doesn't talk about race. You feel me? So because critical race theory is kind of birthed out of critiquing critical legal studies and pushing it further, this is one of the reasons why you see throughout a lot of red states that's already inherent beef with CRT because they ain't like CLS. You see what I'm saying? In exposing the racist nature of the American legal system, CRT adherence explores race phenomena such as the legal manifestations of white supremacy and the perpetuation of subordination of people of color. Here's where it doesn't make sense. For us to be able to champion the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, and on one instance say that the past doesn't matter and say that race doesn't matter, it poses a conservative contradiction. Because on one notion, you have to be able to acknowledge that one of the reasons why you believe the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence is so beautiful is because it was exclusively created by straight white men. On another notion, though, you feel me? In order for you to celebrate the beauty, the history and beauty of these, you know what I'm saying, documents, you have to go further in the past than you tell Black folks and Native people and Mexican people they shouldn't go. So again, we see how critical race theory gives us the perspective to be able to speak truth to power because we understand they don't want that shit to happen. They want us to be able to be passive, docile beings that don't know what's going on so they can chastise us and be like, hey, nigga, learn the law. Hey, you can't complain about the law if you don't go and vote. And we seen what happened in 2020. We seen record numbers in different people of color getting involved in the policy-making process. And then we seen record numbers of conservatives passing legislation that criminalize these high participation of Black people and people of color. So again, we see this pose thing like, damn, you say on one notion that goddamn systemic racism doesn't exist, but then on another notion, you say if it do exist, it's happening to white kids. Which one is it? So does systemic racism exist or not? We start to see these obvious gaping paradoxes. You feel me? Or how I put it, the hypocrisy of democracy. And for the haters, this is not me saying or negating that America is a republic. It's talking about how American republic is structured by democratic ideas. So when I say the hypocrisy of democracy, I'm talking about how America has invaded a whole bunch of different countries globally through the right and the notion of spreading democracy. You feel me? I'm understanding that when we teach kids in K through 12 and we make them pledge allegiance to the flag, we teach them democratic ideas and why America is so much better than the rest of the world is because it's democratic. So when I say the hypocrisy of democracy, I'm talking about how we're supposed to be able to have freedom of speech and all this here shit. But on one notion, it's like, hey, if we start to have too much education that can make people in power sweat a little bit around the collar, we're going to outlaw that. And it's just the insidious nature of white supremacy, you know? CRT, though, is centered around reform. I know a lot of people that's really hip to the game in terms of CRT. Let's be real, man. Critical race theory is not that radical. As somebody that was a debater, somebody that has a master's degree, somebody that's kind of been involved within academia, within higher education, there are a lot of more radical forms of Black literature that critiques the law and critiques society that's way more radical and revolutionary than critical race theory. CRT is centered around reform. Many CRT scholars had witnessed how the law could be used to help secure and protect civil rights. Therefore, critical race theorists recognize that while the law can be used to deepen racial inequality, it also held potential as a tool for emancipation for securing racial equality. Now, when it comes to thinking about the criticisms and critiques of CRT, I ain't gonna lie to y'all, most of them bullshit. Most of them is lost in the sauce of their feelings. You feel me? Caught up in their feelings and or a whole bunch of just knee-jerk shortcoming analysis about what they think critical race theory is. Don't get me wrong, though. There are some solid, substantial criticisms of critical race theory, though. And a lot of those criticisms center around this idea of critical race theory reform. You know what I'm saying? We're going to get into that in part 2 of the lecture, you know, but part 1 is making sure we recognize that though I'm talking about and exposing a lot of the more weaker, sorrier, lazy critiques of critical race theory, there are some good critiques of critical race theory. We're going to get into that, you know what I'm saying, and different things. And for y'all that don't know, reform is defined as making change to something, typically a social, political, economic, institutional practice in order to improve it. Critical race theory is centered around trying to improve the law, not do away with the law. CRT is centered around trying to reform the legal system, not burn the legal system down. You feel me? That's something that's very important that I think that a lot of people just get into. I had this racial realism that I had in there. I made this slide just to be able to give y'all a little teaser in terms of language and in terms of a lot of the tools and concepts that critical race theory is able to, I feel like, give us. You know what I'm saying? One of the reasons why I recognize people like following me is because I have this language, this lexicon. You know what I'm saying? This lexicon and rhetoric. And I want to help y'all be able to build y'all lexicon, y'all rhetoric, and, you know what I'm saying, vocabulary words. You feel me? Racial realism is one of those words. Make sure you tune in, tell a friend, goddamn. The part 2 of the critical race theory, we're going to be getting into the better criticisms of critical race theory, as well as some of the tools of critical race theory. You know what I'm saying? But let's get into the tenets. You know, there are a few tenets of critical race theory because a lot of y'all might be asking, like, what's the purpose of it though? Like, okay, consciously, you didn't did a lot of, you know what I'm saying, rants about this and that in terms of critical race theory, a lot of pontificating about this, but like, really, like, what's the purpose though? You know what I'm saying? While recognizing that there's an evolving, malleable nature of CRT, the scholar Kiera Bridges outlines just a few key tenets of CRT. Now, before I get into these key tenets, I want to also recognize that if you go to like the Britannica dictionary, there are also some tenets that the dictionary, I feel like, outline as well in terms of what CRT is. And it's a lot more than this. What's wrong? Izzy, come here, baby girl. Why you hit your brother? Come here. Come here. Don't do that, baby. He can tell, baby. Listen, y'all can't be fighting. Zane, what you do that to her for? What? Baby, listen. You gotta play nice, okay?
I want to do that.
Y'all don't want to share?
No.
If you don't want to share, I'm gonna come in there and take it and make y'all watch TV. So go. Go. Huh? Hey, I see the comments, you know what I'm saying, right now pouring in because I'm saying why my kids then came in and say CRT will force the teaching of white fertility in the school as well. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Unpopular opinion, but some of those white kids, they're trying to protect their from feeling good, should feel bad. Feeling bad is to empathy, feeling, oh yeah, definitely. Let's be real too. Critical race theory exposed to me how the idea of guilt is always seen as something bad. Or actually, guilt is always seen as something good insofar as attached to white people. You know what I'm saying? When niggas go into, when any quote unquote criminal goes into the court and talks about being guilty, it's seen as something good because you're holding accountability. When we talk about white guilt, it's always something that's demonized because, hey, you're trying to make me feel guilty. Well, goddamn, in any other instance of guilt, the concept of guilt is always seen as something good. That's about responsibility and accountability. I think critical race theory exposes how on the individual level, there are a lot of white people on the individual level that don't want to be held accountable and responsible for the way they're positioned within society. And let's be clear. I'm not saying that we're blaming you for what your ancestors did. We only saying it's your responsibility to help us tear down what your ancestors helped build for you. You see what I'm saying? And whether you believe in reform or not, you recognize that tearing something down is a part of building something to make it better. Anytime you renovate something, you got to tear something down and make it a part, you know what I'm saying, a better. You feel me? So this to be clear though, or this is saying, I think it's funny that a lot of the white people that say they don't want to be blamed for what their ancestors did, damn sure I want to let go of nothing their ancestors left for them. A lot of the criticisms of critical race theory comes from people being racially illiterate. The ability to read and write situations that pertains to race. That's what I mean by racial literacy. And a lot of people are racially illiterate. They're so racially illiterate and conditioned by their racial illiteracy that they're invested. They're invested in resisting being taught more to become more literate about how race operates. Critical race theory raises consciousness and literacy about CRT, about the legal system, about media, about sports, about math, about the legal, about the education system. You feel me? There are a lot of different ways that critical race theory is able to give us perspective or give us a little glasses to kind of put, you know what I'm saying, a better lens on what's happening and what's going down. Just wanted to make sure I made that clear, you know. But just to get into these key concepts, man, these key tenets. According to one of the scholars of CRT, Kerry Bridges, one of the tenets of CRT is that it critiques how the social construction of race and institutionalized racism perpetuates the racial caste system that relegates people of color to the bottom tiers. CRT also recognizes that race intersects with other identities, including sexuality, gender identity, and others. Down south, Black trans women have the lowest life expectancy amongst all demographics. Critical race theory gives us a lens through intersectionality to understand why that is a reality. Sorry, y'all, for that burp. I mean, it was a little. The second tenet of CRT recognizes that race is not biological. That race is not biologically real, but it is socially constructed and socially significant. It recognizes that science, as demonstrated in the Human Genome Project, refutes the idea of biological racial differences. CRT also gave me the ability to understand that there are a lot of other industries outside of, there are a lot of other spheres outside of the legal system that's also lost in the sauce of anti-Blackness and racism. One of those is sociology and science. What's the white dude? I'm trying to think of the white man's name, man. Father of sociology, what was his name? Freud, Sigmund Freud, seen as being the father of something. You feel me? But he was racist as shit. One of the reasons why this tenet is important is because there were a lot of people that bought into biological differences about race. And CRT is important is because we can recognize that though biological, the biological notion of race is not real, it's also structured into the law and into our health field. There are a lot of impacts that lead to Black death and more pain and suffering for Black people because different industries believe in biological differences for Black people. And us being able to take more pain or more suffering, us not needing, you know what I'm saying, pain medicine. You know, according to the scholars Richard Delgado and Jean Stefanik, the race is a product of social thought. It is not connected to biological reality. This to sprinkle a little bit of clarity because I know some of y'all gonna be on that bullshit. When we say that race is a social construct, it does not mean that race is not real. When we say that race is a social construct, it pertains to how our society, as it is structured, has also a particular concept of race that is structured within that understanding of our society. Race being a social construct means that if you go to a different society, you might see a different construction of race in terms of the nuances of how white over Black, light over dark operate. Another tenet of racism acknowledges that racism is a normal feature of society and that it is embedded within the system and institutions, like the legal system, that replicate racial inequality. This dismisses the idea that racist incidents are aberrations, but instead are manifestations of a structural and systemic racism. And tenet 3 is one of the reasons why I think most people show they have not read a goddamn thing concerning CRT because they want to fold all their criticisms of CRT being about individuals, being interpersonal. Oh my God, CRT is bad because it teaches individual white kids that people are bad. No, critical race theory is centered around manifestations of structural and systemic racism. If you read a journal or article or a goddamn scholar, you would know that. But you have not done that. As a matter of fact, not only have you not done it, you're invested to proving and resisting why you should not do it. And that's the reason why you're making all these shallow ass criticisms of CRT. But you know, down south, we got some sayings, you feel me? And when you think very deep about shallow shit, you will drown in your own shallow understanding. The fourth tenet of CRT: rejection of popular understandings about racism, such as arguments that confine racism as a few bad apples. CRT recognizes that racism is codified in the law. I'm gonna repeat that. CRT recognizes that racism is codified in the law and embedded in structures and woven into public policy. CRT rejects claims of meritocracy or color blindness. CRT recognizes that it is systemic nature of racism that bears primary responsibility for reproducing racial inequality. CRT obviously disrupts this little fantasy people have about capitalism and about if you work hard, you'll get whatever you want to have in this world. No. Black folks been working in this goddamn country since we've been here. If we was going on the idealistic concept of capitalism that says if you work hard, you'll be able to get all these fruits of your labor. God damn it, black people should have some of the, we should be the demographic with the most fruits in America then. But CRT shows us how black people gets literally separated from our labor. How our flesh gets separated from our labor. How we get paid less on the cents on a dollar for our labor. How through law, even when we goddamn get our dimes and pennies and nickels and dollars, when we go buy homes, those homes are devalued through the law, through redlining and shit like that, through segregation. You feel me? So we see how CRT is able to give us the ability to speak truth to power and recognizing again that systemic nature of racism has more impact on the primary responsibility of the world that we live in than the individual level. After I say it, I want to say this and be clear, man. My mama and my dad are convicted felons. You know what I'm saying? I'm born and raised in a community that had high police presence and low employment. You feel me? I'm speaking to y'all from the home I own, and both of my kids are gonna never have to worry about eating, sleep for dinner. You know? So I'm not just giving you some victimization bullshit, right? I'm giving you the ability to navigate the world in terms of recognizing what's gonna come to you and what's gonna come for you. I'm not giving you cruel optimism that says you can do or be anything in this world and you can. Nah, I recognize there are limitations. Now, can you overcome limitations? Damn right you can. But let's be real and acknowledge the limitations. That's what we're going to have kids do. That's what me as a young black kid reading CRT, what I was able to learn. Learn how to navigate this white supremacist world as a cisgender straight black man from Bryan, Texas. I'm supposed to be a statistic. Studies show that if you come from, if both of your parents were incarcerated, goddamn, you about 70% likely of being incarcerated as well. I ain't incarcerated. I'm a professor. It's a lot of conflation that's involved with all dialogue that's tied to empowerment, especially when we talk about oppression. Ask yourself, why isn't celebrating the victimization of white settlers seen as victimization? Why isn't the always have to remember white settlers being tarred and feathered by, you feel me, their oppressors, white on white crime? I say that from another video. Why is that seen as being empowering and not seen as victimization? How come when black people and native people and Latino people want to start talking about what white supremacy has done to them, it's seen as being some bullshit victimization? But we can teach kids throughout America that, hey, they would tax our representation. They were tarred and feathered. Hey, never mind they were stealing, raping, and pillaging and killing other people. Let's think about how they were victimized and how we should pop firecrackers and eat barbecue because of that. CRT gave me the ability to be able to speak truth to power and a lot of other things I've read as well. But it gives me the lens to be able to see how they're able to use the trick of time and color blindness and meritocracy to be able to gaslight people of color. Well, that's not true. White privilege isn't real. My parents have this because they work hard. You say my parents have it? What? My grandfather, may he rest in peace. I watched this man my whole life work his finger to the bone. In the house that he was able to own on the west side of Bryan, he wasn't big. He wasn't luxurious. He worked hard though. CRT rejects them claims of meritocracy. They say if you work hard, you get all this shit. CRT rejects the ideas of color blindness. They say, hey, no, man. Anytime a police officer shoots a black person, we should see the law as being colorblind and that just being one bad apple or that just being one mere instance. Nah, we can stop that. The fifth tenet of CRT recognizes the relevance of people's everyday lives to scholarship. This includes embracing the lived experiences of people of color, including those preserved through storytelling, and then rejecting deficit-informed research that includes the epistemologies of people of color. And for y'all that don't know, epistemologies is about knowledge production. It's literally defined as kind of where you get your truth claims from. If you believe Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, that you have a particular epistemological understanding. If you believe that critical race theory is structured to call white people racist and it's all about white people, you come from a particular epistemological understanding. Now we got to the last 10. I hope y'all see that when white conservatives start talking about why CRT is bad, you can simply wrap that shit up and saying, stop centering yourself in everything and about you. Most of the criticisms that's been normalized on Fox News and all networks like that, they operate on centering whiteness and white people. Critical race theory, I would argue, does not. Critical race theory is centering the experiences, the lived experiences of people of color, not white people. And being able to talk about how when in the 1960s, 1950s, 1920s, and before on, when people of color or even white people went to law school, they didn't get to learn about the way in which the law is structured by race and racism. For clarity, peep game. CRT does not define racism in the traditional manner as solely the consequence of discrete irrational bad acts that's perpetuated by individuals. It does not do that. But it usually is unintended by the unforeseeable, often consequences of choices. A lot of people will say in a horrible argumentation against critical race theory, systems cannot be racist. There is no such thing as systemic racism. It's like bullshit. The president that you just got done voting for tried to give us the Platinum Plus plan. The Platinum Plus plan acknowledges that the system has disparities in inequalities and inequities in education, in health, in business, in the law. How did it work? You say systems can't be racist, but goddamn, you was acting like you was an expert on the systemic racism when it came to that 1992 crime bill and Joe Biden. Make it make sense. It exposes the ways in which CRT exposes the ways in which racism is often cloaked in terminology regarding mainstream, normal, or traditional values that we want to see as being neutral principle practices. When y'all see them tap dancing ass black folks that they love to highlight as being a spectacle and being like, into it's a part who that it always behooves me, man. It's always they always find the one black man that's married to the 9 black woman. They get they biracial kids and be like, look, you want my child to hate their mom. It's like, hey man, listen, man, my wife is a black biracial woman, and goddamn it, our kids gonna know everything about racial critical race theory in our household. Not only that, they're gonna learn about colorism and they're gonna learn about, you know what I'm saying, light skin privilege and white privilege and all that theory. You know what I'm saying? I find it funny that the people that always talk about that, they always come from it in a traditional, normal sense that says, well, I want my kids to just learn that people are people and that we should treat bad people as bad people and good people as good people. And it's like, hey, listen, man, I know you lost in the sauce the same as goddamn, But critical race theory is about us embracing differences, and in terms of how the legal system is able to account for our differences. Through me being an academic and me being in the higher education, critical race theory gives me the understanding to be able to understand our racial differences and how we're positioned by those differences. Hey, man, we all bleed red. We all put our pants on the same. There's only one race, the human race. Hey, peep game, man, that's not why we beefing. That's not why we, you know what I'm saying, why niggas getting shot and why we having this high level of, you know what I'm saying, incarceration. That's not why it's a high level of Native women being missing. That's not why, you feel me, my Arab brothers, sisters, and gender non-conforming people being stopped in the goddamn movie theaters and you know what I'm saying, in airports. It's our differences. Critical race theory sits upon our differences and wants us to be able to understand our differences through an educational lens about the legal system, about education, and that's what it's about. Understanding CRT in practice, though. For civil rights lawyers, this can be a particularly powerful approach for examining race in society, particularly because CRT has recently come under fire. Understanding CRT is some as the primary tenets and is vital to civil rights leaders who seek to eradicate racial inequality for the country. Peep gang, man. For all the people that's mad that OJ got off, and you know what I'm saying, and you believe that OJ did it, peep gang, the reason why OJ got off is because them folks was used to giving bullshit, horrible legal tactics that were steeped in anti-blackness and racism. As a result of LA not really having experience of dealing with black people that have a high level of economic status like OJ Simpson had, of course, Johnny Cochran was able to, if the glove doesn't fit, it doesn't commit, because we understand they laid a horrible case. And for the non-black people, I'm gonna be real. Most black people in the black community, we know OJ did it. The reason why we celebrate this shit, though, we seeing it as a win to the system. But when we start to celebrate shit because niggas getting off, we start to see how they get us in a slippery slope of some unethical shit when it comes to the Bill Cosby getting out of jail because of some legal technicalities. Kimberly Crenshaw, oh yeah, definitely Canada Chris. I was too young, definitely too young, you feel me? But it doesn't change, though, that critical race theory, if the prosecutors in the OJ Simpson case would have goddamn cracked open the book of critical race theory, they probably would have been able to convict OJ Simpson. But instead, they tried to borrow on all those pathological ways in which black people are criminalized, in which black people are seen as being irrational, as black people being as being, you know what I'm saying, always already criminal. They was able to lay that shit down. You know? Can't get mad at them about that, I guess. Or can we? As scholar Tara Yoso asserts, CRT can be the approach used to theorize, examine, and challenge the ways in which race and racism implicitly and explicitly impact social structures, practices, and discourses. I'm going to read that again because I would argue that this is the ultimate purpose of critical race theory. Critical race theory can be the approach used to theorize, examine, and challenge the ways in which race and racism implicitly and explicitly impact social structures, practices, and discourses. CRT observes that CRT observes a scholarship that ignores race is demonstrating neutrality, but adherence to the existence racial hierarchy. A lot of people ask the question, why is it called a theory? And they think that asking that question is, you feel me? Aha, I got the question. Like education is a theory, you know, capitalism is a theory. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like the reason why it's called a theory is because it's based off of study and examination, you feel me? And research, you know. That's the reason why it's called critical race theory, because it's examining and researching and doing analysis about a particular structure and different facets of our lives. Now, if you find yourselves in this lecture and you want to learn more about critical race theory, you want to, you know what I'm saying, get more materials about critical race theory, we have some for you, man. Other materials to learn about CRT, we have Critical Race Theory Matters, man. This is the education and ideology by All them people at the bottom right there. You know what I'm saying? Margaret M. Zumadio, Kasky Ruskell, Francisco A. Rios, Jacqueline L. Bridgman. The reason why I said they names is because I'm hip consciously about how when we see names that are phonetically not normalized, they're usually not seen as being European normalized names. We typically don't want to try to pronounce those words. You know what I'm saying? And I caught myself right there. The reason why I didn't want to say name because I seen Margaret last name is something I ain't like, damn, I don't know how to pronounce that word or whatever. But I think a part of unlearning racism and relearning racism is finding out the ways in which the multiple ways in which racism permeates our lives. You know what I'm saying? Like I also do workshops about racism and, you know what I'm saying, white supremacy and about oppression. And something that I always acknowledge is that race, class, gender, sexuality, it permeates more than what we think it does. Like, for instance, race permeates more than just skin color. I recognize the way that I speak, the clothes that I wear, the way that I wear my hair, the way that I move is also, you know what I'm saying, sometimes racialized, just like names. And what I find is that there's a trend of people not wanting to pronounce those racially ethnic names. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of the reasons also why not only critical race theory matters, but in the broad, why like black scholarship matters in you know what I'm saying, in the big picture. You feel me? Another one is the Critical Race Theory, Introduction to Critical Race Theory by Richard Delgado and Gene Stefani. This is it's been updated. It's the third edition right here. It's been updated to include the Black Lives Matter movement, the presidency of Barack Obama, and the rise of hate speech on the internet and more. The Critical Race Theory book right here is essential for understanding developments of the burgeoning field, which is spread to other disciplines in other countries. Shout out to all my other followers outside the U.S., man. GeorgeLeeSpeaks.com. If you're interested in getting my country ass over to your country, you feel me? Go and go to GeorgeLeeSpeaks.com. I got some soft score lesson plans for you. Professional development, diversity, inclusion, anti-racism, race, class, gender, ability, sexuality, you name it, it's over there for you, man. Another tool, you feel me? Because I keep on mentioning how critical race theory has also bled into other fields. We have another book right here if you're interested, Critical Race Theory in Mathematics Education. This is edited by Julius Davis and Christopher Jett. This is through Critical Race Theory and Mathematics brings together scholarship that uses critical race theory to provide a comprehensive understanding of race, racism, social justice, and experiential knowledge of African Americans' mathematics education. Believe it or not, race also impacts the way we understand math. From its origins, from the Pythagorean theorem, all the way to how we think about who gets access into heavily mathematic, you know what I'm saying, spaces, or STEM, how someone put it, you feel me? In conclusion, though, could be in towards the end, CRT rejects any characterization of the legal system as being neutral or colorblind, and also and specifically embraces color consciousness and identity politics as a way to rectify today the racial legal legacies. If racism were merely a spot, it could be cured with a band-aid approach like affirmative action. However, it is not a band-aid spot. It is obviously structured and baked into the cooking of what America is, whose real purpose in the United States, to quote unquote, create enough exceptions to white privilege. And then, of course, I have to give y'all my works cited page, man. I didn't put the Space Traders Derek Bell and also what I was reading from. I put that in the comments section where I was reading that thing from Derek Bell in terms of what you call. Definitely open out to a little Q&A, man. To my kids start acting up. I apologize for the little choppy parts, man. My kids in the background yelling and shit, and I feel like I had planned to be able to have them not here, and I was gonna be able to really get into the bag if I wanted to get into the bag. But this will be up, you know. So if you know somebody that missed out on this, you know what I'm saying, it still be up on my page on YouTube and Facebook as well. Open up now to a Q&A, man. If there are any questions that anybody have, open to those. Shout out to everybody too, man, that sent these stickers, man. Appreciate you, Ken and Chris. Thank you, Shell. Definitely appreciate y'all, man. The comment section is jumping off. I know I spoke a little fast. I know I was stuttering a little bit. Part 2, you know where I'm going on and pick that date right now. Part 2 gonna be at the end of this month. We gonna go with let's see, man. We're gonna go with July 27th, man, in a week and a half. It's 2 weeks from now, July 27th, man. Same time, July 27th. That's when we got part 2, man. Definitely appreciate the gifts. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, man. I definitely can answer a few questions. I know some of y'all had questions about when we should start teaching critical race theory. I tried to answer that question in the lecture. Can you tell me again? Could you tell me why again white people think CRT teaches racism? And my say this going to what they took shit what they said. You feel me? Like the reason why, because President Trump, they, you feel me? A lot of they Lord, they what I want to say, they savior. You feel me? Say that, you know, critical race theory is divisive, it's racist stereotyping and racial scapegoating, and it's divisive. You know what I'm saying? And you know, that's where they came from. You know what I mean? Like I don't get why that was the simplified criticism of critical race theory and how critical race theory got lumped into diversity and inclusion trainings. But I tried to make sure there is a, you know what I'm saying, distinction. See, do you have any events in GA coming up, man? I thought I was gonna be able to be in Atlanta at the end of the month, but I gotta find me a babysitter. It ain't looking too good right now though. Can you recommend a few books to read as a family? A few books to read as a family. The homie Ibrahim, I can't even pronounce bro name, but he has a lot of different books, anti-racism books that's for kids. That I actually have a few of those books for my kids. You know what I'm saying? It's like literally anti-racism books for kids. That's what I would go and type in, and you'll be able to get a lot of those, man. See, should I begin to read Miseducation of Negro? I was thinking about it. Have you read it yet? I think, hey Jordan, I think that the Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson is a great book to start off with in terms of learning about race and racism, especially if you're Black. You know what I'm saying? But I think non-Black people, I think it's also a great book to read as well in terms of being able to, Abraham Kennedy. That's what I was talking about. Abraham X Kennedy. Homie right there. You feel me? Abraham Kennedy. That's who's gonna get into it. You feel me? The interest convergence theory, just, you know what I'm saying, just says that anytime we are able to get a piece of legislation or we're able to get some progression for Black people, it is first and foremost because it forced the interests of white people. You know what I'm saying? That's what the interest convergence theory says. So we can think about the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, think about the all the civil rights, you know what I'm saying? All the civil rights legislation. I understand it through the interest convergence theory that at the time America abroad was trying to fight for democracy and fight against communism, and because a lot of the people that was kind of opposing America's resistance to communism was saying like, damn, how you saying democracy and capitalism all that's good and you doing your Black folks like that right there? I would argue that a lot of those civil rights legislation was passed. A lot of those policies was passed to be able to posture towards more the more communist countries. You know what I'm saying? And I guess too, I can get into, you know, oh yeah, you have to send me an email, georgeleespeaks@gmail.com. I guess I should have talked about too. A lot of critical race theory comes from Marxist thought. A lot of critical race theorists, you feel me, have a lot of respect for Marxism and Marxist, you feel me, literature. You feel me? I'm one of those people that have a lot of respect for Marxists and Marxism. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I mean? Definitely, you know. This stuff can be taught at home too. Only a fool will this teach. Oh, yeah, definitely, man. Shout out to Soleil. You know what I'm saying? Soleil. I feel like I always say her name wrong this way. You feel me? Because, you know what I'm saying? I feel like I try to think of like Lorraine and then Soleil, but you know what I mean? But I feel like Black woman, I should have your name right because you're one of my biggest supporters. I definitely support you. I appreciate everything, all the engagement, all the support. But like she said, though, who would do that? You know what I mean? You shouldn't do that right there. How would you go about making CRT curriculum to K through 2? I think that when we start talking about K through 12, I feel like more when you get to like 4th and 5th grade, I can think about when we start teaching more explicitly about race and racism, how you ain't necessarily got to teach like this is what critical race theory is, but you can already start teaching some of the components of critical race theory in terms of race not being biological. As a matter of fact, I feel like the tenets 4 and like 5 about race not being biological and about, you know what I'm saying, how it not being about a few bad apples. I think that you can already start teaching kids that as soon as they're able to understand, you feel me, shit, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you know. Oh, and shout out to you, Soleil. I know I said it right, big. Appreciate you, man. I was worried about that. Definitely was worried about that. Man. Yeah, I got time for, like, you know what I'm saying, 2 or 3 more questions. And then I'm gonna get to these children, make sure they ain't tearing up my house, man. Also, too, man, we got those Educate Church, GeorgeLeeSpeaks.com. We got a lot of merch available up there, you know what I'm saying, for y'all. I live in the Netherlands, and I'm curious to learn how CRT applies here. I'm not sure how to get started. I wonder if any books mentioned would be beneficial for me with that. I think that me understanding how the law operates in America and seeing how a lot of the archetype of our law comes from Europe, I feel like you can start with Kimberly Crenshaw's writing that I just came from, that I was reading from. Give y'all the title of that. I would start with the a lesson. I'll start mapping the margins, intersectionality, identity politics, and violence against women of color. I'm willing to bet my bottom dollar that Netherlands definitely has identity politics and violence against women of color, and I'm definitely willing to bet bottom dollar that there are some legal court cases that were able to speak to and or account for the women of color, you feel me, violence towards them, and, you know what I'm saying, marking the margins of intersectionality. You know what I mean? And me understanding that really I would type in Netherlands critical race theory in Google and see what come up. And I would go to Google Scholar and type in Netherlands critical race theory and see what, you know what I'm saying, see what come up. But I feel like that Richard Delgado book, Introduction to Critical Race Theory, I think that would be a great way to understand it, because I also see that it's a reason why Black Lives Matter was seen as a global movement, or a reason why Black Lives Matter, though it started in America, spilled over into the international realm, because the disrespect of Black people and people of color is global. You see what I'm saying? And I know Black folks in Netherlands is also getting treated like shit as well. So, you know, holler at you, your fellow Black person in the Netherlands, they got you. And, you know what I'm saying? Research over me search. You know what I'm saying? It's how you do that right there, man. And people that's asking for that email, you know, right now you're doing a Q&A right now. People that's asking for that email. Oh, the email right here. GeorgeLeeSpeaks@gmail.com. Yeah, definitely anti-Blackness is definitely global. The email is GeorgeLeeSpeaks@gmail.com. I work in higher ed, more specifically financial aid. How can I use CRT ideas to help create equity in this space? I think that talking about like accessibility, like just the question of accessibility when it comes to, like, you know, enrollment, when it comes to retention, I think critical race theory is a good tool to be able to recognize the different policies and practices that your, you know what I'm saying, university does, that your, you know what I'm saying, Office of Financial Aid does, in terms of being able to get their resources to people of color. You feel me? Like, we know that affirmative action is seen as a piece of legislation that's championed a lot throughout higher education, but affirmative action benefited more white women than it did people of color. You see what I'm saying? We can give an analysis of how that happened and why that happened through understanding how financial aid was distributed to different student bodies, to different student classes. You feel me? That's what I think. But also too, Ms. Holmes, GeorgeLeeSpeaks.com. I make a workshop just for you and your people of how y'all can think about critical race theory, think about unlearning racism, think about the unconscious consciousness of racism with doing y'all jobs in higher education in terms of financial aid. You feel me? Definitely. You know, the merch, definitely link in the bio, GeorgeLeeSpeaks.com. You see it right there behind me. You know what I'm saying? That's where you go for all the merch, for all of the booking. You know what I'm saying? Got a book on the way as well. I got 2 books I'm working on, but you know what I'm saying, you gotta do one thing at a time, though, you know. It's Daisha say, thanks a lot for the answer. There's definitely a lot of institutionalized racism here. One of the most well-known is the Zwarte Piet, or Black Pete, which is literally blackface for kids holiday. Yeah, shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, critical race theory will be able to get an understanding to see how y'all law in the Netherlands don't see the racial violence of blackface as being something that can be understood through the law. You feel me? Like, in my part 2, I'm going to get into some of the more robust criticisms that I think that I like, you feel me, in terms of critical race theory. Zane, 1 minute, son, about how there are grammars of suffering that Black people go through that cannot be understood through grammar or the law. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like the unspoken grammars are suffering when it comes to black people. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of the times, law is made to be able to account for or trying to stop, ideally, what some people would think of pain and suffering. Now, I think, Agamben and Heidegger and a lot of those white philosophers would say otherwise in terms of what the reason for the state is. But ideally, we're taught through democratic ideas. The state is about trying to stop pain and suffering where, where it can. And what we're able to find is that though a lot of people say that the system doesn't work, a lot of us in the black community and in communities of color say the system can't fail who it wasn't designed to work for. You see what I'm saying? And I think that that's a lot of times, man. The date I'm doing that for part 2 is going to be July 27th, man. July 27th. That's when we're going to be doing that date for that. See, Jordan Kelly, thank you. And I'm black, LOL. Shout out to all the black people just because, man. Do you go to HBCUs? Because I need to come to, I definitely go to HBCUs. Shout out to Florida Memorial University. I'm going to be out that way in October. That's a HBCU down in Florida. Definitely would love to visit some more HBCU. As a matter of fact, so somebody at Langston, man, some people at Langston, y'all tap in with me at Langston, man. I'm in y'all state of Oklahoma. I love to collab with somebody or something like that. Langston, HBCU here in Oklahoma. And shout out to everybody too at what was I talking about? PV, all them. Would you feel how would you feel about a workshop at our regional lecture? Hey, Miss Holmes, sign me up. You know what I'm saying? Sign me up, going on and tap in with the, the management. You can book me through GeorgeLeeSpeaks.com. Oh, yeah, GeorgeLeeSpeaks.com. That's where you book me at right there. That's how we can do it. Y'all know my motto: education is elevation. Education is elevation. I can recognize that education for some people is also criminalization. We see that the school to prison pipeline is something that's also real. I know I didn't touch on it in this right here, but critical race theory also gives us the ability to understand how the school to prison pipeline operates and how kids of color, particularly black and brown children, are disproportionately impacted by, zero tolerance policies, things like that. Khadijah, I just talked about this on my IG page. My biggest following is in New York City. I have never been to New York City in my life. I would love to get booked to come out there so I can finally be able to have an excuse to come to New York to see what's going on in the boroughs, man. And two, big apologies to everybody from the Bronx. You know what I'm saying? I said in one of my videos, Bronx, and I didn't realize you're supposed to say the Bronx, like the part is you need to put that part in there. So yeah, man, no smoke, man. Shout out to Virginia State University. My last question. How are black majority cities able or not able to dismantle systemic racism? A lot of black majority cities are ran by white people. A lot of the times, the reason why I like Huey P. Newton's quote about power being the ability to define the phenomenon and make it act in a desired manner, the reason why I like that quote is because it shows me the importance of power. And when we think about how black people are positioned in cities, especially in cities that are majority black, a lot of the times black people are paternalized in those cities. You feel what I'm saying? Hey, big shout out to you, Daisha. Appreciate you. A lot of times black people are paternalized and patronized in those cities, and we put and seen as being infants or kids that cannot be able to govern ourselves. You see what I'm saying? For instance, Washington, D.C. is one of the cities that's been majority black since its beginning. Goddamn. For the longest time in history of DC, most of America, the American government believed that the people of DC were incapable of being able to govern themselves. That's why they ain't have no mayor and shit. You see what I'm saying? So when you think about how black ran cities are made, don't get me wrong, they are able to dismantle systemic racism, but you have to be able to define the phenomenon to make it act in a desired manner first. There's a lot of prison industrial complex as well as the non-profit industrial complex that rings very heavy in black cities, Atlanta, DC, Baltimore, you name them, you know what I'm saying? And we see that there are a lot of different forces, a lot of different practices and policies. It's a little bit different than how black people are treated in cities that are not predominantly black. So, you know what I'm saying? Definitely a great question, man. Definitely a great question. Next session, July 27th, same time, 2 p.m. Central Time. A big shout out to everybody that showed up for this one right here. I promise you, my part 2 will be a lot more structured, a lot more organized. I won't be saying as much. I'm already thinking about how I can critique myself in this right here, man. Always looking to improve the craft, always looking to, you know what I'm saying, make it better, man. So if you have a criticism, especially a constructive criticism, go and send that to georgeleespeaks.com. You know what I'm saying? Get your inner Simon Cowell on, open to all constructive criticisms, man. Consciously, aka George Lee. Shout out to my hometown, Bryan College Station, Texas, man. I just had them a big old talent show the other day, man. Shout out to, you know what I'm saying, JG the Sons, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to Lil J, you feel me? RIP L Dub. You feel me? Free all my families locked down, especially the ones locked down for nonviolent victimless crimes, man. Until next time, I'll holler at y'all. It's been real. Oh, before I leave, actually, every Monday, the Chop Up Show, my podcast, we go live every Monday. This Monday, we didn't go live. We're going to be going live sometime, you know what I'm saying, this time. But y'all should definitely like, subscribe to this channel right here so you can get also the podcast, Chop Up Show, man. Yeah.